Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about conditional statements. Now the first conditional statement that we're going to go through is going to be the if statement. There's multiple different conditional statements that we're going to cover, but the if statement is one of the most basic conditional statements and it's probably one of the most used conditional statements as well. So as you can see in our last video we were talking about bitwise operators. So we're going to go and just create a new file. I'm going to call my file conditionalstatements.js. So we're going to start off by creating a file, and I'm going to call my JavaScript file conditionalstatements if.js. Now with our if statements we can compare numbers and we can check our variables. So we can check that our variable is equal to something or that it's not equal to something, and then based on whether that is true or not we can go and do something else. So for example, we might want to check to see if your age is greater than 16 or equal to 16. If we know that you're 16 or greater, we know that you are eligible to work. So in this example, we're going to start off with our age. So we're going to say let, and then our variable name, we'll call it age, equals 25. So you can pick whatever age you want. I'm just going to pick 25 for this example, and now we're going to actually start to use our conditional statement or our if statement, and we just simply say if, so if. Now keep in mind that this if is known as a keyword. So for example, if you wanted to create a variable, like here we've created a variable called age, you wouldn't actually be able to create a variable called if because it's this keyword. And you'll see some different keywords as we go through this JavaScript course. You know, when we talk about loops and we talk about things like that, you can't use those as your variable names either. Now what you could do is you could get around this by, let's say, adding another word at the end of this. If you wanted to create an if you wanted to have the word if in your variable name. But just for this example we're going to focus on using the keyword if. And we're not going to worry about creating fancy variable names just yet. So we've got our if keyword, and then what follows our if keyword is two brackets. So an opening and a closing round bracket. And inside these round brackets is going to be our conditional statement or our logic or what we want to compare. So for example, we're dealing with age in this example. So we would have, you know, age is greater than, or age is not equal to, or age is equal to, or some sort of logic like that inside these brackets. So I'm going to check to see if my age is greater than 16, because if my age is greater than 16, I'm eligible to work. So to do this, we'll just say age, our variable, and then we'll put in a greater than sign because we want to make sure that our age is greater than, and now we'll put in the minimum age that you can start work at. So in Ireland it's 16, so we'll put in 16. Now a good practice for this, we can see that 16 is put in here, and some people call this hard coding, and by hard coding you're putting in this value yourself. So you know, imagine let's say next year or you know, in 5 or 10 years time that the minimum age of working was changed to maybe 15 or maybe 17 or something like that. You would have to change this number in multiple places if you were making multiple checks. Now again, for this small example, it doesn't really matter because we'd only have to change our age in one place. That would be within inside our if statement here. But one really good practice is to make constants, and we can make constants by, you know, having the keyword const at the top and then specifying whatever this constant variable is that we're going to use. So we could say working age, so working age like this, and we could set this variable to 16. Then we could replace this 16, it would be no longer needed, and we could replace this with working, and I can see that's O there, working age. So this would be a really good solution if we were maybe creating an application for ourselves, or an application that was, you know, a little bit bigger than this example here that we're going through. You know, this is only for practice, so we don't want to get too caught up on having everything perfect. You know, when you are developing your own applications and maybe possibly, working in industry, or you might go off to college and do this type of thing. It'll be more important to have, really good quality code. But for now we can get rid of this. So I'll just delete this working age and I'll put back in the number 16. And since we're not using working age, I can delete this as well. This is just to, make sure that we're focusing more in on our conditional statement and that nothing else is confusing you. But I just wanted you to note that it is good practice and to keep it in mind. So now we can see with this if statement we have a red squiggly line at the second bracket. So this usually isn't a good sign. It usually means we're missing something or what we've typed is incorrect. So what we've typed so far is perfect. The only problem is there's another little bit to the conditional statement, and that extra little bit is these two brackets here. Now these brackets are slightly different. These are curly brackets, while the first set of brackets we used were round. It is important. If you use other ones, it won't compile, so your program won't work. And I'm just going to bring these down to the next line to make it a little bit more straightforward. So we're going to separate these, and within these curly brackets is going to be what our computer does. So if we wanted to add two numbers together, or if we wanted to take two numbers away, or if we just wanted to print something out to the screen, whatever we want to do, we can do it within these curly brackets. And for this example, I'm just going to print something out because it's the simplest thing and it's the most easy and straightforward way of understanding how these programs work. So we're going to console log, then we're going to have our quotes, and we want to say something in here. So for example, if we look at this, we can see that if age is greater than 16. Okay, so if my age is greater than 16, I want to print out something. So for our example, we were saying about if people were, greater than 16, they would be able to work. Okay, so we want to put in quotes here, eligible. So let's say eligible to work. Okay, and there's actually a slight little problem here, okay? But I'll get back to that now in 1 second. So I'm going to go and run this, and we can see that eligible to work is printed out. That's because we've set our age here to 25. Now imagine if we set our age to something else. So maybe we set our age to 12, and we go and run this program. We can see that we see nothing at all. So basically we try and see if this is true, this statement, age is less than 16. And if this is not true, it's just kind of skipped. We go on to whatever code is down underneath it now. In this example, we have no other code. This is the only thing that we have in our program. So nothing gets displayed out here. But there's a slight bug here. Okay, so imagine I was 16. So if you're 16, you're allowed work. So if I go and run this, you'll see that I don't get a message saying that I'm eligible to work. So realistically, this age should be greater than 15, assuming that our age can't be like, 15.5, because just because you're 15 and a half, you're still not eligible to work. So it's important little things like this to understand and to get right. So if we go and run this now, we can see we are eligible to work. But again, using this example, we could have an age, let's say if someone was 15.5, so let's say they're 15 and a half, and we go and run this, we can see that they're eligible to work. But this shouldn't actually be the output. If you're 15 and a half, you shouldn't be able to work. So one thing that we could do is we could say if your age is greater than or equal to 16. So if we replace this with 16 and we go and run this again, we can see that nothing gets displayed out. And if we change this back to 16, we should get our outcome as eligible to work. And we do. We see eligible to work. So that's just like little things like that when you're programming your own individual programs, to just keep in mind that your conditional statements are correct, and think about different inputs that you could get and how that might affect it. Like imagine, what if we put in, let's say, a string in here, right? So let's say, for some reason we're supposed to be getting in an integer, right? So we're supposed to be getting in a number. Imagine we got in Ryan. If we go and run this, what happens? We don't get any result. So that's what we would expect to see. So that's good. but this is part of testing your own programs, testing different variables, testing different numbers and seeing what happens and making sure, or trying to minimize the amount of problems that your programs will have. So I'm just going to go through one more really quick example. So we're going to get rid of age here and we're going to replace this with name. And in actual fact, I'm going to delete all this just to avoid confusion. And I'm going to say let. So let, and I'm going to say name, and I'm going to set my name to Ryan. So I'm going to put Ryan like this. And now I'm not checking for age anymore because age has been deleted. So I'm going to be checking for name. And I want to check my name for something. And I want to check to see, is my name equal to Ryan? Okay. So remember, if we want to check, we use 2 equals rather than 1. And we can even use 3 if we want to compare it, both type and content. So we covered this in some of the previous videos. So if you're a little bit unfamiliar with some of these things, go back and take a look at the previous videos. Because in these videos, from this video onwards, we're going to be building on the things that we've learned prior to this. So we're just going to put in our string here, and we're going to put in Ryan. And we want to check this, and we want to say, right, okay, so we don't want this algebra to work anymore. We want to change this because this is, seeing if somebody's name is Ryan. So we might say, hi Ryan. So if we go and run this, we can say we get our message displayed, hi Ryan. But imagine if I put a different name in here. Imagine if I put in Chris, right? Okay, so let's run this, and we see no output, which is perfect because that's what we want from our program. We haven't made our program deal with the name Chris or any other names at all. And that's what we're going to get into in our next video. Our next video is going to be talking about conditional statements also. We're going to be using if statements, but then we're also going to be using this other statement called an else statement. And it's also a keyword, and it's actually really useful when we go and create programs.